The Saturday afternoon sun blazed over Riverside Community Fair in Lima, Ohio, turning the asphalt parking lot into a shimmering heat mirage. Families streamed through the entrance gates, children clutching tickets for rides, parents juggling cotton candy and lemonade. The air smelled of funnel cakes, grilled corn, and that particular summer scent of cut grass and diesel from the carnival generators. Laughter and carnival music mixed with the mechanical whir of the Ferris wheel and the delighted screams from the tilt-a-whirl. At exactly 2:00 p.m., a police cruiser rolled into the fairgrounds, its presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. Conversations quieted, heads turned. The car parked near the main pavilion, and Officer Marcus Reynolds emerged from the driver's side, a tall, broad-shouldered man in his late 30s with a military-style haircut and a uniform so crisp it could cut paper. His dark eyes swept the crowd with the practiced assessment of someone who'd spent 15 years in law enforcement. But it wasn't Marcus who commanded attention. When he opened the rear door, Rex exploded from the vehicle with controlled power. The German Shepherd was a magnificent specimen, 85 pounds of pure muscle, black and tan coat gleaming in the sunlight, ears standing at perfect attention. His movements were precise, calculated, almost predatory. Every inch of him screamed working dog, from the tactical collar around his neck to the way his eyes constantly scanned for threats. "Mommy, look at the police dog," a young boy shouted, but his mother immediately pulled him back. "Don't get too close, honey. Those dogs are dangerous." The crowd instinctively created a 10-foot buffer zone around Marcus and Rex. It happened unconsciously, parents herding children behind them, teenagers taking cautious steps backward, elderly couples pausing their conversations to watch warily. Rex had that effect on people. He wasn't just a dog, he was a living weapon, and everyone knew it. Marcus felt a surge of pride as he led Rex toward the police department's booth. This was exactly the reaction they trained for: respect, authority, the kind of presence that made criminals think twice and made communities feel safe. In 5 years as Rex's handler, they'd made over 30 successful drug busts, tracked down 2 missing children, and apprehended a domestic violence suspect who'd been hiding in a warehouse. Rex had never failed a mission, never hesitated, never showed weakness. "Good boy," Marcus murmured, more out of habit than affection. Rex's ears twitched, but his expression remained serious, professional. The police booth stood decorated with banners reading "Meet Your K-9 Unit" and "Protecting OUR Community." A table displayed photos of Rex in action, jumping over obstacles, searching vehicles, sitting alert beside seized drug packages. Officer Jennifer Cho, Marcus's colleague, was already there arranging pamphlets about police dog training and community safety programs. "Marcus, Rex," she called out, waving. "Perfect timing, we're getting a good crowd today." As they approached, more people gathered, forming a semicircle around the booth. There was something magnetic about watching a police dog work, even when he was just standing still. Rex sat on command, his posture ramrod straight, muscles coiled beneath his coat like loaded springs. His dark eyes tracked every movement, every sound. Children whispered behind their parents' legs. "Is he gonna bite someone? Can he really smell drugs? I heard police dogs can take down grown men." Marcus launched into his well-practiced presentation. "Good afternoon, everyone. This is Rex, a 5-year-old German Shepherd certified in narcotics detection and apprehension. He's been with the Riverside Police Department for 5 years and has been instrumental in keeping our streets safe." He spoke with the confidence of someone who'd given this speech 100 times. Rex undergoes 6 hours of training every single day. He can detect over a dozen different narcotics, track scents up to a mile away, and respond to commands in both English and German. The crowd murmured, impressed. Phones came out to record videos. Rex sat motionless, the perfect demonstration of discipline and control. "Can we pet him?" a brave girl of about 7 asked from behind her father. Marcus shook his head with a polite but firm smile. Rex is a working dog, not a pet. He needs to maintain his focus and authority. Physical affection can interfere with his training and his ability to do his job effectively. It was the standard answer, the correct answer, the answer he'd been giving for 5 years. What Marcus didn't say, what he didn't even consciously acknowledge, was that he'd never really tried to pet Rex outside of professional rewards. When Rex successfully completed a task, Marcus would throw him a tennis ball or give him a firm pat on the side. But there were no belly rubs, no lazy afternoons in the park, no moments of just being together without a purpose. Rex lived in a kennel at the police station. He ate precisely measured meals at precisely scheduled times. He trained from 6 a.m. to noon, worked afternoon and evening shifts, then returned to his kennel. Sometimes Marcus took him on calls at 2 a.m. Sometimes they worked 20-hour days during major operations. Rex never complained, never faltered. He was the perfect partner. Or was he? Marcus pushed the thought away. This was how K9 units operated. This was how they maintained peak performance. Rex was fed, healthy, well-trained, and doing important work. What more could a dog need? The crowd continued to grow, pressing closer despite their nervousness. Rex's presence was magnetic, terrifying, and fascinating in equal measure. Parents explained to their children how police dogs helped catch bad guys. Teenagers tried to look tough while maintaining a safe distance. A few brave souls asked questions about training techniques and career requirements for K9 officers. Marcus answered mechanically, his attention partially on the crowd and partially on Rex, always monitoring his partner for signs of stress or distraction. But Rex never showed either. He sat like a stone guardian, breathing steadily, eyes alert, tail motionless. The perfect working dog. The perfect professional. The perfect what? Marcus didn't have time to finish the thought because that's when he saw her. A tiny figure in a sunshine-yellow dress breaking away from her mother's hand. Light-up sneakers flashing with each determined step, heading straight toward Rex with absolutely no fear in her eyes. Everything was about to change. Sarah Chen had been watching her daughter for exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds too long spent fishing a wet wipe from her purse to clean Emma's sticky fingers. 3 seconds was all it took. When Sarah looked up, her heart stopped. Emma was gone. Emma? Sarah's voice pitched high with instant panic. She spun in a circle, scanning the crowd of hundreds. The fairgrounds were packed, a sea of strangers, and her 3-year-old had vanished. Emma. Then she saw the yellow dress, 20 feet away and moving fast. Oh my God, Emma, no. Emma Chen was on a mission. She'd spotted the big doggy from across the pavilion, and unlike all the other children who seemed scared, Emma felt only curiosity and excitement. The doggy was beautiful, like the one in her picture books, but bigger and more majestic. She'd been begging her parents for a dog for months, and now here was the most magnificent dog she'd ever seen. Her little legs pumped as fast as they could, light-up sneakers flashing pink and purple with each step. The crowd seemed to sense something was happening and parted slightly, creating an inadvertent pathway straight to the police booth. Emma, stop right now. Sarah's voice cracked with fear as she pushed through the crowd, apologizing to people she bumped into. Excuse me, sorry, that's my daughter. Marcus saw the child approaching and immediately went into handler mode. His hand moved instinctively to Rex's collar, ready to maintain control. Children could be unpredictable, and unpredictable movements around trained police dogs could trigger unwanted responses. Rex's ears perked forward, his body tensing slightly as he tracked the approaching target. Ma'am, please keep your child back from the, Marcus started, but Emma was already there. She stopped less than 2 feet from Rex's face, so close that the German shepherd's breath ruffled the wispy bangs across her forehead. The entire crowd seemed to hold its collective breath. Parents grabbed their own children, pulling them back even farther. Someone gasped. A man pulled out his phone, hitting record. Marcus's training kicked in. "Sweetie, you need to step back. This is a police dog and he's—" But Emma wasn't listening. She stood perfectly still, her small face tilted upward, studying Rex with the intense, unblinking focus that only very young children possess. Her brown eyes locked onto Rex's dark ones, and something passed between them, some wordless communication that Marcus couldn't understand. Rex, for his part, didn't move. He didn't growl, didn't bark, didn't show any signs of aggression. But he also didn't wag his tail or soften his posture. He simply stared back at the tiny human who had invaded his space with such boldness. Sarah finally broke through the crowd, breathless and terrified. "I'm so sorry. Emma, come here right now." She reached for her daughter's arm, but Emma shook her off with the stubborn determination of a toddler who wasn't finished with whatever she was doing. "Emma Chen, I mean it." Sarah's voice wavered between anger and fear. She looked at Marcus with desperate, apologetic eyes. "I'm so sorry, officer. She just ran off. She loves dogs, but I told her not to." "It's okay," Marcus said, though his hand remained firmly on Rex's collar. "But we do need to." "Why doesn't anybody pet him?" Emma asked suddenly, her voice loud and clear in the tense silence. The question caught everyone off guard. Marcus blinked. "What?" "The doggy," Emma said, pointing at Rex matter-of-factly. "Why doesn't anybody pet him? All those people are looking, but nobody pets him. Doggies like pets." A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd. Marcus felt himself relax slightly. "Well, sweetie, Rex here is a working dog. He's not a pet. He has an important job, and we can't treat him like a regular dog because—" "He looks sad," Emma interrupted, and the chuckles died immediately. Marcus felt his stomach clench. He's not sad, he's just focused on his work. But Emma was shaking her head, her expression so serious it was almost comical on such a young face. She took another small step closer to Rex, and Sarah made a strangled sound of distress. "Emma, honey, please." "No, Mommy, look." Emma pointed at Rex's face with one small finger, her voice rising with passionate certainty. "Look at his eyes. They're sad eyes." The crowd pressed closer, everyone straining to see what the little girl saw. Marcus found himself looking at Rex's face, really looking at it for the first time in how long? Days, weeks. The dog's dark eyes were sharp, alert, constantly scanning, professional, controlled. But were they sad? "Sweetie, I promise you, Rex is very well taken care of," Marcus said, hearing the slight defensive edge in his own voice. "He's fed the best food, he gets regular vet checkups, he has excellent training." "But does he get to play?" Emma demanded, and there was something almost accusatory in her tone. "Does he get to run and jump and be happy, or does he just work all the time?" Officer Jennifer Cho, standing beside the booth, shifted uncomfortably. A few people in the crowd exchanged glances. Sarah had stopped trying to pull Emma away, her own expression now thoughtful as she looked at the imposing police dog. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. When was the last time Rex had just played? Really played, not training exercises with rewards. When had Rex last run in an open field just for the joy of running? When had Marcus thrown a ball without expecting Rex to demonstrate perfect retrieve techniques? "He's a working dog," Marcus repeated, but the words sounded hollow even to his own ears. "He's very happy with his work." "No, he's not," Emma said with the absolute certainty that only a 3-year-old could muster. Her eyes suddenly welled with tears, and her lower lip trembled. "He's sad. He wants to play with the other doggies and roll in the grass and get belly rubs, but nobody lets him because they only want him to work. A woman in the crowd made a soft "oh" sound. A man cleared his throat roughly. Sarah put her hand over her mouth, her eyes glistening. Emma turned to face the crowd, and when she spoke again, her voice carried across the entire pavilion. "Why does everybody make the doggy work all the time? Don't you know doggies need love? You can't just use him. He has feelings." The silence that followed was deafening. Phone cameras continued to record. Marcus stood frozen, his hand still on Rex's collar, feeling like he'd just been struck by lightning. This 3-year-old girl, who probably still watched cartoons and believed in Santa Claus, had just delivered a devastating truth that he'd been too blind, too professional, too focused on the mission to see. And when Marcus finally forced himself to look down at Rex, to really see his partner, he noticed something he'd missed for 5 years. Rex's tail had never been tucked or down that would indicate fear or submission, but it had also never been up, never wagging with joy. It simply existed, neutral, professional, empty of emotion. Just like the look in his eyes, the fairground seemed to hold its breath. Even the carnival music in the distance felt muted, as if the universe itself was waiting to see what would happen next. Marcus Reynolds stood paralyzed, one hand still gripping Rex's collar, the other hanging uselessly at his side. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Emma Chen, all 3 feet of her, stood with her hands on her hips, staring up at the towering police officer with an expression that somehow managed to be both accusatory and heartbroken. Tears rolled down her chubby cheeks, leaving wet tracks that caught the afternoon sunlight. "You don't love him," she said, and her voice cracked with genuine grief. "You just use him." The words landed like a physical blow. Marcus actually took a step backward. "Emma," Sarah gasped, mortified. "You can't say that to a police officer." But the damage was done. The crowd had heard it. The phones were recording it. And worse, much worse, Marcus felt the truth of it resonating in his chest like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. It's not like that," Marcus stammered, and he hated how defensive he sounded. "Rex is my partner. We've been through everything together. We trust each other with our lives." "Do you hug him?" Emma asked simply. Marcus blinked. "What?" "Do you hug him?" Emma repeated, enunciating each word carefully as if speaking to someone who didn't understand English. "When you go home, do you hug him and tell him he's a good doggy and that you love him?" "He doesn't live with me. He has quarters at the station where—" "He lives in a cage." Emma's voice went up an octave and fresh tears spilled over. "The doggy lives in a cage and never gets hugs." "It's not a cage. It's a professional kennel facility designed for—" "It's a cage," Emma shouted, and several people in the crowd nodded unconsciously. "You make him work all day, and then you put him in a cage, and he's all alone and sad, and nobody loves him." Officer Jennifer Cho stepped forward, trying to help. "Sweetie, police dogs are very special. They're heroes. They help catch bad guys and keep people safe. Rex loves his job." "No, he doesn't," Emma said flatly, and the certainty in her voice was chilling. She turned back to Rex, who had been sitting silently through the entire exchange, watching the proceedings with those dark, unreadable eyes. "You don't love your job, do you, doggy? You just do it because that's all they let you do." And then something happened that Marcus would replay in his mind for years to come. Rex's ears drooped, just slightly, just for a moment, but Marcus saw it, and so did a dozen other people in the crowd. The proud, fierce police dog, the one who'd faced down armed criminals without flinching, showed a crack in his armor in response to a toddler's observation. "Oh my God," someone whispered. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He looked down at Rex, really looked at him, and suddenly he was seeing his partner through different eyes. Not as a tool, not as a weapon, not as a K-9 unit designation number, but as a living, breathing creature with emotions and needs beyond food and training. When was the last time Rex had wagged his tail spontaneously? Not as a trained response to a reward, but just because he was happy. When was the last time Rex had played with another dog, ever? When was the last time Marcus had petted him, without it being part of a training protocol? The questions piled up in Marcus's mind, each one hitting harder than the last. 5 years. He'd been Rex's handler for 5 years, and in all that time he'd treated him like equipment that needed maintenance. Feed at 600 hours, training from 800 to 1200. Work shift from 1300 to 2100. Return to kennel. Repeat. What kind of life was that? Officer, a woman's voice came from the crowd. Marcus looked up to see a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a tight expression. My son was in the military. He was a dog handler in Afghanistan. He told me. One of his biggest regrets was that he treated his dog like a tool instead of a friend. He said he was so focused on the mission that he forgot his dog was more than just equipment. A man spoke up next. I saw a documentary once about working dogs. They said that dogs who only work and never play can develop depression and anxiety just like humans. My sister's a veterinarian, another voice chimed in. She says emotional wellness is just as important as physical health for dogs, especially working breeds. The crowd was turning, not against Marcus exactly, but toward Emma's perspective. People were nodding, murmuring agreement, looking at Rex with new sympathy in their eyes. Marcus felt exposed, as if this 3-year-old had stripped away all his professional justifications and left him standing naked in his failure. Because that's what it was, wasn't it? A failure. He'd failed his partner in the most fundamental way possible. Sarah Chen knelt beside her daughter, no longer trying to pull her away. Emma, honey, maybe the officer takes good care of Rex in ways we don't see. No, Mommy, Emma said, shaking her head fiercely. Look at his eyes, really look. And so everyone did. The entire crowd leaned in slightly, staring at Rex's face. The German Shepherd sat perfectly still, maintaining his professional posture, but there was something in his expression now, something that Marcus had been trained to ignore, to overlook, to dismiss as anthropomorphization. Loneliness. He goes to work every day, Emma continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper which somehow made it more powerful. He does everything they tell him. He's a good doggy, the best doggy, but nobody ever tells him he's special. Nobody plays with him. Nobody lets him just be a doggy. She turned to Marcus, and her next words would be captured on a dozen cell phone videos and viewed by millions of people around the world. You're not scary, she said, pointing at Rex. You're not a police doggy or a work doggy or a hero doggy. You're just a sad doggy who wants someone to love him. The silence that followed felt like the pause before thunder. Marcus's vision blurred. He realized with shock that his eyes were burning with tears. A 15-year veteran police officer, crying at a community fair because a toddler had spoken a truth he'd been avoiding for 5 years. He looked down at Rex again, his partner, his tool, his friend. Had Rex ever been his friend? Marcus slowly released Rex's collar and took a step back, giving himself space to think, to breathe, to process. His hands were shaking. Around him, the crowd watched in complete silence, witnessing something profound and uncomfortable, the moment when professional protocol collided with basic compassion and lost. Officer Jennifer stood with tears streaming down her own face, one hand pressed to her mouth. She had a K9 partner too, a Belgian Malinois named Thor. Did Thor live the same empty, workaholic existence? Did she treat him the same way? Emma wiped her nose with the back of her hand, still crying. Can I give him a hug, please? He needs a hug so bad. And Marcus Reynolds, who had spent 5 years maintaining strict professional boundaries, who had written reports on proper K9 handler protocols, who had taught courses on keeping appropriate emotional distance from working animals, heard himself say the words that would change everything. Yes, you can hug him. Marcus Reynolds stood motionless as Emma approached Rex, watching as if from a great distance. The crowd faded into background noise. The carnival sounds became meaningless static. All he could see was a 3-year-old girl extending her small arms toward an 85-pound police dog, and all he could feel was the crushing weight of 5 years of mistakes pressing down on his chest. Emma wrapped her arms around Rex's neck as far as they would reach and buried her face in his fur. It's okay, doggy, she whispered. You're a good doggy. You're the best doggy. And Rex, the fierce police dog who had been trained to maintain professional distance, who had never shown weakness, who had faced down criminals without hesitation, did something Marcus had never seen in 5 years of partnership. He leaned into her embrace. Not a trained response, not a calculated movement, just a pure, instinctive gesture of a lonely creature accepting comfort from someone who genuinely cared. Marcus felt something break inside him. His mind suddenly flooded with memories, 5 years of them, and each one now felt like an accusation. Day 1, the training facility, meeting Rex for the first time, the instructor's words, "These are working animals, Reynolds, not pets. You maintain authority, you maintain distance, and you maintain effectiveness. Remember that and you'll have a perfect partner." Marcus had followed those instructions to the letter. He'd never questioned them. Why would he? The instructor was a 20-year veteran. The protocols were established. This was how professional K-9 units operated. But now, watching Emma hug Rex, Marcus saw that first day differently. Rex had been 3 years old then, already trained, already professional, but there had been something in his eyes that Marcus had dismissed as irrelevant. A hopefulness, maybe. A desire to connect. Marcus had shut that down immediately. Sit, stay, good boy, rewards for compliance, distance for everything else. Year 1. The first major drug bust. Rex had performed flawlessly, alerting to a hidden compartment in a semi-truck that contained 50 pounds of methamphetamine. Marcus remembered the chief's congratulations, the media attention, the commendations. Rex had sat beside him during the press conference, perfectly still, perfectly professional. After the cameras left, Marcus had given Rex his reward, 3 minutes with a tennis ball, then back to the kennel. Rex's tail had wagged during those 3 minutes. Then it stopped. When had it stopped wagging altogether? Marcus couldn't remember. Somewhere along the way, Rex had learned that enthusiasm wasn't part of the job description. Year 2. The search and rescue mission. A 5-year-old boy had wandered away from a camping trip. Rex tracked him for 3 miles through dense forest, found him cold and scared but alive. The boy's mother had sobbed with gratitude, hugging Marcus, trying to hug Rex. "Please don't," Marcus had said, pulling Rex back. "He needs to maintain his focus." The mother had looked hurt but had complied. Rex had sat there, having just saved a child's life, and no one had celebrated with him. No one had told him he was a hero. Marcus had given him a liver treat and moved on to the next mission. Year 3. The injury. Rex had taken down a fleeing suspect who'd pulled a knife. The blade had caught Rex's shoulder, requiring 12 stitches. Marcus had stayed at the vet clinic, packing the waiting room, genuinely worried. When Rex came out of surgery, Marcus had felt overwhelming relief. But he'd expressed that relief with a firm pat and "Good boy, Rex. Back to work in 2 weeks." Rex had looked up at him with those dark eyes, and Marcus had seen something there. A question maybe. A hope for more. But Marcus had been too professional to recognize it. Too focused on recovery protocols and training schedules to see that Rex might need emotional comfort, not just medical care. Year 4. The long nights. Budget cuts meant fewer officers, longer shifts. Sometimes they'd work 20-hour days. Marcus would stumble home exhausted, fall into bed, and wake up to do it again. Rex would return to his kennel, lie on the concrete floor, and wait for morning. Marcus had occasionally felt guilty about the hours, but Rex never complained, never showed signs of stress that Marcus recognized, so he'd assumed everything was fine. Just part of the job, just what working dogs did. Year 5, just last month, the new recruit's question. A young officer fresh out of the academy had asked Marcus, "Do you ever take Rex home? Like, do you guys hang out off duty?" Marcus had laughed, actually laughed. "Rex isn't a pet, rookie. He's a K-9 officer. He lives at the station, he trains at the station, he works from the station. That's how we maintain peak performance." The recruit had nodded, but there'd been something in his expression. discomfort, maybe disapproval, that Marcus had dismissed as inexperience. The kid didn't understand professional standards yet. He'd learn. But now, standing at this community fair, watching a 3-year-old give Rex what Marcus never had, he understood that the recruit had been right to be uncomfortable. They were all uncomfortable. They'd just gotten very good at ignoring it. Marcus thought about his own life. He had a house, a comfortable bed, freedom to go where he wanted on his days off, hobbies, friends. He went to barbecues, watched football, went fishing. He had a life beyond his work. What did Rex have? A 10-by-10 kennel, measured meals at scheduled times, training exercises that looked like play but were really just more work. No friends, no freedom, no life beyond the badge. "Oh God," Marcus whispered, and the words came out broken. Officer Jennifer heard him and put a hand on his shoulder. She was crying too. "Thor sleeps in a kennel too," she said quietly. I never thought about it like this." Around them, other people were crying. Not just women, but hardened men who probably owned dogs themselves and were suddenly confronting uncomfortable questions about their own relationships with their pets. How many people treated their dogs as accessories or conveniences rather than family members? But this was worse, Marcus realized, because at least pet owners could rationalize that their dogs had good lives, comfortable homes, love. Rex had none of that. Rex had only work. Marcus had been so proud of their partnership, so proud of their success rate, their commendations, their reputation. He'd measured everything in metrics: arrests made, drugs seized, missions completed. He'd never once measured Rex's happiness, because he'd never once considered that happiness mattered. Working dogs work, that's what they do, that's their purpose, right? Except Rex wasn't a robot. He was a living being with the capacity to feel joy, loneliness, depression, love. German Shepherds were loyal, intelligent, deeply emotional creatures. They bonded intensely with their people. They needed connection, not just commands. And Marcus had given Rex nothing but commands for 5 years. "I'm sorry," Marcus heard himself say, though he wasn't sure who he was talking to: Emma, the crowd, Rex himself. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I should have known, but I didn't." Emma pulled back from Rex and looked up at Marcus with those enormous brown eyes still swimming with tears. "Now you know," she said simply. "So now you can fix it." Could he undo 5 years of emotional neglect? Could he teach Rex that life could be more than work? Could he learn to see his partner as a friend instead of a tool? Marcus didn't know, but looking at Rex, really seeing him for the first time, he knew he had to try. Emma Chen stepped back from Rex and wiped her nose with her sleeve, leaving a wet smear across the yellow fabric. She looked at the German Shepherd with such intense concentration that everyone watching felt compelled to stay silent, as if afraid to interrupt something sacred. "Mr. Police Officer," Emma said, turning to Marcus with sudden formality, "can I give the doggy a happy pet?" Marcus blinked, still reeling from the emotional avalanche that had just crashed over him. A what?" "A happy pet," Emma repeated, as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. "Not a work pet, not a good job pet, a happy pet, the kind that makes doggies smile." Sarah started to apologize again, but Marcus held up his hand. Something had shifted in him, some fundamental understanding that protocol and procedure had just taken a backseat to basic humanity, or basic dogmanity, whatever this moment required. "Yes," Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. "Yes, you can give him a happy pet." Emma's face lit up like sunrise. She turned back to Rex, who had remained sitting throughout the entire exchange, though his posture had softened considerably. The rigid military bearing had given way to something more natural, more dog-like. "Okay, doggy," Emma said seriously, placing both of her small hands on either side of Rex's face. "I'm gonna pet you now, and you need to know something really, really important." Rex's ears swiveled forward. fully focused on the tiny human holding his face. "You're allowed to be happy," Emma said, each word deliberate and clear. "You don't have to be tough all the time, you don't have to be scary, you don't have to just work, you can be happy, you can be silly, you can be a regular doggy who likes belly rubs and treats and running and playing. Okay." The crowd held its collective breath. "It's okay to be happy," Emma whispered again, and she began to stroke Rex's head with the gentle, unself-conscious affection that children naturally possess. Not the brisk, efficient pats that Marcus gave during training, not the mechanical reward touches, just pure, unconditional tenderness. For several seconds, nothing happened. Rex sat there, receiving the affection with his typical stoic acceptance. Marcus felt his heart sinking. Maybe it was too late. Maybe 5 years of conditioning had erased Rex's ability to just be. Then Rex's tail moved. Just a twitch at first, a tiny tremor that could have been mistaken for a muscle spasm, but then it moved again, and suddenly Rex's tail was wagging, actually wagging, sweeping back and forth across the ground with increasing enthusiasm. "Oh my God," Jennifer breathed, "I've never seen him do that." Neither had Marcus, not like this, not spontaneously without a command or a reward pending. This was just joy, pure, uncomplicated joy. But Rex wasn't done. As Emma continued to pet him, speaking to him in her sweet, high-pitched voice about how good and special and wonderful he was, something extraordinary happened. Rex's mouth opened, his tongue lolled out, and he began to pant in that unmistakably happy way that dogs do. His eyes, which had been so serious and guarded, suddenly looked brighter, younger, alive. "He's smiling," someone in the crowd exclaimed. "The police dog is smiling." And he was, there was no other word for it. Rex was smiling. Emma giggled with delight. "See, he just needed someone to tell him it's okay." She threw her arms around Rex's neck again, and this time Rex responded completely. He leaned his entire weight into her, nearly knocking the small child over. His tail wagged so hard his whole back end wiggled. A soft whine escaped his throat, not distress, but happiness so intense he couldn't contain it. Marcus felt something wet on his cheeks and realized he was crying. Not just tears in his eyes, but actual crying, with his shoulders shaking and his breath hitching. He didn't care who saw. He couldn't care, because he was watching his partner, his friend, experience genuine happiness for the first time in 5 years, and the reality of what he'd stolen from Rex was overwhelming. "I'm so sorry, boy," Marcus whispered. "I'm so sorry." Officer Jennifer was openly sobbing now, her mascara running in black streaks down her face. Other people in the crowd were crying too, mothers clutching their children, fathers clearing their throats roughly, teenagers wiping their eyes and trying to look tough despite their emotions. Emma pulled back again and looked at Rex seriously. "You have to promise me something, doggy." Rex's tail continued wagging, his expression open and trusting in a way it had never been before. "You have to promise that you'll be happy sometimes," Emma said. "Even when you're working, even when you're being brave and catching bad guys, you have to remember that you're allowed to be happy. Promise." And then Rex did something that made everyone gasp. He placed his right paw in Emma's tiny outstretched hand. It wasn't a trained behavior. Marcus had never taught Rex to shake hands. They'd focused on tactical commands, not cute tricks. This was Rex making his own choice, responding to Emma's request in the only way he knew how. "He promises," Emma squealed, shaking his paw solemnly. "The doggy promises." The crowd erupted in applause. People were cheering, crying, recording, calling to their friends to come see. It was as if everyone recognized they were witnessing something rare and precious. The moment when a working animal remembered he was also a living soul deserving of love. Marcus dropped to his knees beside Emma and Rex. His hand, which had only ever touched Rex with professional purpose, now moved slowly, tentatively to rest on his partner's head. Not a commanding touch, not a training touch, just connection. "I promise to," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I promise I'll do better. I promise I'll see you, really see you, not just as my K-9 unit, not just as my tool, as my friend, as my family." Rex turned his head and for the first time ever licked Marcus's face. It was sloppy and enthusiastic, and completely unprofessional and absolutely perfect. Marcus laughed through his tears, a sound of pure relief and joy and grief and hope all mixed together. He wrapped his arms around Rex, and Rex leaned into him the same way he'd leaned into Emma, with complete trust and affection. "Thank you," Marcus said to Emma, who was beaming with satisfaction. "Thank you for seeing what I was too blind to see." Emma nodded seriously. "Everybody needs love, Mr. Police Officer, even working doggies, especially working doggies." And in that moment, at a community fair in small-town Ohio, with cameras recording and crowds watching, Marcus Reynolds learned the most important lesson of his career. Strength without love isn't strength at all. It's just loneliness wearing a uniform. Melissa Torres had been at the Riverside Community Fair to film content for her local lifestyle blog. She'd expected to get some cute footage of kids on carnival rides, maybe interview a few vendors. She had 8,000 followers, decent for a small-town blogger, nothing spectacular. What she'd captured instead would change everything. Her phone had been recording when Emma Chen marched up to Rex. She kept recording through the entire confrontation, through Emma's tearful accusations, through Marcus's breakdown, through that incredible moment when Rex finally wagged his tail and smiled. Her hands had been shaking so badly the footage was slightly unstable, but the audio was crystal clear. Sitting in her car in the parking lot, Melissa watched the video 3 times with tears streaming down her face. Then she opened her social media apps and hit upload. The caption was simple. 3-year-old tells police officer his K-9 is sad. What happens next will break your heart. Broken dog Rex the police dog Emma's wisdom working dog welfare. She posted it at 3:47 p.m. on Saturday afternoon and drove home, not expecting much. By 6:00 p.m., the video had 50,000 views. By 9:00 p.m., it had crossed 1 million. By midnight, it was at 5 million and climbing exponentially. Melissa's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. News outlets were requesting permission to use her footage. Her follower count was climbing so fast the numbers seemed broken. But more importantly, the comments were pouring in, thousands upon thousands of them, and they were all saying the same thing. That little girl is absolutely right. We treat working dogs like machines. I'm a retired military K-9 handler and I'm sobbing. She's right. We were taught to maintain distance. I wish someone had told me what this child knows instinctively. This is heartbreaking, that officer's face when he realizes what he's done, or not done. I felt that in my soul. My dad was a police officer with a K-9. His dog retired after 8 years and lived in our home for the first time ever. It took him MONTHS to understand he was allowed to just be a dog. He didn't know how to play. He'd been working his entire life. The video jumped platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. By Sunday morning, it was trending worldwide. Rex the police dog and Emma's wisdom became top hashtags. Major news networks picked up the story. CNN ran a segment. Child's observation sparks national conversation about working dog welfare. The Today Show wanted Marcus and Emma for an interview. Good Morning America was calling the Riverside Police Department. But the story wasn't just spreading through mainstream media. It was exploding in law enforcement communities, animal welfare organizations, and among K-9 handlers across the globe. On a private Facebook group for K-9 handlers with 12,000 members, the video had been shared 847 times. The comment thread was unlike anything the group moderators had ever seen. I've been doing this for 15 years. I just watched this video and then I went to the station and I sat in front of Duke's kennel and I cried. When did I stop seeing him as a dog? We need to talk about this as a community. That little girl exposed something we've all been ignoring. I brought my partner home tonight, first time in 6 years. He's sleeping on a dog bed in my living room right now. He keeps looking at me like he doesn't understand what's happening. What have we done? Not all programs are like this. Our department requires handlers to take dogs home to integrate them into family life. But I know plenty of departments that don't. This needs to change. I'm former military K9. Iraq and Afghanistan, 3 different dogs over 10 years. I never took any of them home, never played with them outside of training. I thought I was being professional. I was just being cruel. The conversation spread to veterinary communities. Dr. Rachel Kim, a veterinarian specializing in working dog health, posted a 15-minute video response that went viral itself. I've been treating police and military K9 units for 20 years, she said, speaking directly to the camera with evident emotion. And I've been trying to tell handlers what this 3-year-old girl said in 30 seconds. Working dogs need enrichment. They need play. They need love. The research is overwhelming. Dogs who work without emotional fulfillment develop anxiety, depression, and stress-related health issues. We've known this, but we've been shouted down by tradition and protocol. Maybe now people will listen. Her video was shared by veterinary associations, animal behaviorists, and welfare organizations worldwide. The American Kennel Club issued a statement supporting the need for working dog welfare reform. PETA, for once not being controversial, published a thoughtful piece about the ethical treatment of K9 officers. Service dog organizations chimed in, noting they'd always required handlers to integrate dogs into their daily lives as full family members, not just working tools. By Monday morning, the video had 20 million views. By Tuesday, it crossed 50 million. Marcus's phone had been ringing nonstop since Sunday morning. He turned it off. He couldn't handle it. He'd taken Rex home, actually home to his house, for the first time ever on Saturday night. They'd spent Sunday together just existing. Marcus had ordered a dog bed online for rush delivery. He'd gone to a pet store and bought toys, real toys, not training equipment. He'd taken Rex to a park and thrown a tennis ball without any expectations or commands. Rex had run, just run, with pure joy, tongue flapping, tail wagging, looking back at Marcus every few seconds as if to confirm this was really allowed. Marcus had sat on a park bench and cried, while watching his partner rediscover what it meant to simply be a dog. But the outside world wouldn't stop intruding. His police chief had called 6 times. The mayor had called. National news programs were camped outside the police station. Everyone wanted a statement. Everyone wanted an interview. Everyone wanted to know what happened next. On Tuesday morning, Marcus finally turned his phone back on. The voicemail box was full, 97 messages. His email had over 1,000 unread messages. His social media accounts, which he rarely used, had been flooded with friend requests, messages, and comments. But one email caught his attention. It was from Captain James Morrison, retired military K9 handler, president of the United States Working Dog Association. Officer Reynolds, I've watched your video 20 times. Each time I see myself. I spent 25 years handling military working dogs, 7 different partners. I thought I was doing right by them. Your video made me realize I failed every single one. But here's the thing, it's not too late for the dogs who are still working. We need to talk. We need to change this system. That little girl started something. Let's finish it. Call me. There was a phone number. Marcus stared at it for a long time. Rex was lying at his feet, something that would have been forbidden 72 hours ago. The dog's head rested on Marcus's shoe, his breathing slow and content. Everything was different now. The video had done what Marcus could never have predicted. It had ripped open a conversation that law enforcement and military communities had been avoiding for decades. It had forced people to confront uncomfortable truths about how they treated their K-9 partners. A 3-year-old girl in a yellow dress had accidentally started a revolution. Marcus picked up his phone and dialed the number. "Captain Morrison, this is Officer Marcus Reynolds. I think you're right. Let's change this system." On the other end of the line, a man who'd spent 25 years in the military K-9 program cleared his throat roughly. "It's about damn time." Barbara Daniels sat in her office on Wednesday morning with her head in her hands. The phone hadn't stopped ringing since Saturday. News vans were parked outside the station. City council members were demanding meetings. And worst of all, she'd spent the last 3 nights unable to sleep, haunted by the video of Emma Chen telling one of her officers a truth that Daniels herself should have seen. She'd been in law enforcement for 32 years. She'd overseen the K-9 program for the last decade. She'd approved the protocols, the training schedules, the kennel facilities. She'd signed off on everything Marcus Reynolds had done with Rex because it was standard procedure. Industry best practices. What everyone did. Except now, watching that video for the 100th time on her computer screen, Chief Daniels saw it differently. She saw a little girl pointing out something so obvious, so fundamental, that it should have been impossible to miss. They'd been treating living creatures like equipment. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Marcus Reynolds entered, and Daniels almost didn't recognize him. The man looked exhausted but somehow lighter, as if a tremendous weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Rex walked beside him, not in perfect heel position but naturally, companionably. The dog's tail was up, his expression alert but relaxed. "Reynolds," Daniels said, gesturing to a chair. "Sit, both of you." Marcus sat. Rex, without being commanded, lay down at his feet with a contented sigh. Daniels noticed immediately. In all the years Rex had been in her station, she'd never seen him do that. He'd always maintained rigid working posture, even during downtime. "Chief," Marcus began, "I know this has created a situation." "Marcus, shut up and let me talk," Daniels said, but her tone was gentle. She pulled out a thick folder. "I've spent the last 72 hours reading everything I can find about working dog welfare, burnout, emotional needs, enrichment requirements, and best practices from around the world. Do you know what I found?" Marcus shook his head. "We're doing it wrong, all of us. Almost every department in this country is doing it wrong." She opened the folder, revealing pages of highlighted research papers. There are studies going back 30 years showing that working dogs need emotional fulfillment, play time, social interaction, and integration into their handlers' lives. 30 years, Marcus. This isn't new information. We just chose to ignore it. "Chief, I also found," Daniels continued, her voice hardening, "that departments who do integrate their K-9s into handlers' home lives report better performance, longer working careers, fewer stress-related health issues, and stronger handler-dog bonds. Every metric we care about improves when we treat these dogs like living beings instead of tools." She stood and walked to her window, looking out at the news vans. "A 3-year-old child saw in 30 seconds what I missed in 10 years. That's unacceptable." The office fell silent. Rex yawned, his jaw cracking audibly, and stretched. It was such a normal, dog-like gesture that both humans unconsciously smiled. "So what happens now?" Marcus asked quietly. Daniels turned back to face him. "Now we fix it. I've called an emergency meeting with all K-9 handlers for Friday morning. I've also reached out to Captain Morrison from the U.S. Working Dog Association, Dr. Rachel Kim, the veterinarian who made that video response, and Professor David Chen from the Animal Behavior Institute. They're all coming here to help us redesign our entire program." Marcus's eyes widened. "The entire program?" "Every aspect of it," Daniels confirmed. She began ticking items off on her fingers. "First, mandatory handler home placement. Every K9 goes home with their handler, effective immediately. No more kennels at the station except for temporary holding. Chief, some handlers might not. Then they're not K9 handlers anymore, Daniels said firmly. If someone isn't willing to integrate their partner into their life, they don't get a partner. Period. Second, we're implementing mandatory play time, minimum 1 hour daily of unstructured, non-training play. Third, mental enrichment activities. Fourth, regular socialization with other dogs and people outside of work contexts. Fifth, mandatory days off for K9 units. They work 4 days, off 3 days, just like we're trying to do for human officers. She pulled out more documents. Sixth, we're bringing in animal behaviorists for monthly wellness checks, not just physical health, but mental and emotional health. Seventh, we're redesigning our training protocols to incorporate positive relationship building, not just task completion. And eighth, she paused, looking at Marcus seriously, we're implementing a retirement program that doesn't just dump dogs with their handlers and hope for the best. We're going to provide support, training, and resources to help these dogs transition from working life to pet life. Marcus sat stunned. That's a complete overhaul. Yes, it is, Daniels agreed. And it's going to be expensive, time-consuming, and require us to admit we've been wrong for a very long time, but it's the right thing to do. She sat back down, her expression softening. Marcus, I've watched your video with Rex at the park, the one someone posted yesterday. Marcus winced. Someone had filmed him at the park on Sunday, throwing a ball for Rex. It had seemed invasive at the time, but the video had gone viral too, millions of people watching Rex run and play with pure joy. That dog, Daniels said, pointing at Rex, looks healthier and happier after 3 days of proper treatment than he has in 5 years of following our protocols. If that doesn't tell us something's wrong, nothing will. Other departments are watching, Marcus said. Captain Morrison told me at least 40 agencies have reached out wanting to know what we're doing next. Good, Daniels said firmly. Let them watch. Let them see that change is possible. Let them see that we can be professional, effective law enforcement while also being compassionate to our K9 partners. She leaned forward. Marcus, I'm making you the lead on this transition. You'll work with Morrison, Dr. Kim, and Professor Chen to develop and implement the new protocols. You'll train other handlers. You'll be the face of this change. Chief, I don't know if I'm qualified. You're the most qualified person in this building, Daniels interrupted, because you've experienced both sides. You've seen what it's like to treat a dog as equipment, and you've seen what happens when you treat them as family. You made the mistake and you're fixing it. That makes you perfect for this job. Marcus looked down at Rex, who was now completely sprawled on his side, snoring softly. 3 days ago, Rex would never have allowed himself to be so vulnerable in a professional setting. Now he felt safe enough to sleep. Okay, Marcus said quietly. I'll do it, for Rex, for all the other K9s out there who deserve better. Daniels smiled, the first real smile she'd worn in days. Good. Now get out of here. You and Rex have a meeting with the mayor in an hour. She wants to make a public announcement about the policy changes. Marcus stood, and Rex immediately woke and got to his feet, looking up at his handler with bright, trusting eyes. And Marcus, Daniels called as they reached the door, thank you for being willing to change. It takes courage to admit we've been wrong. Marcus nodded. No, Chief, thank Emma. She's the one with the real courage. As they left, Daniels pulled up the video one more time. Emma's voice rang through her office speakers. You're not scary. You're just sad. Not anymore, kid, Daniels whispered to the screen. Not anymore. 6 months later, the Riverside Community Fair returned to the same pavilion where everything had changed. The December air was crisp and cold, with holiday decorations strung between vendor booths and the smell of hot chocolate and cinnamon donuts wafting through the crowd. It was the annual Winter Festival edition, and the Riverside Police Department had once again set up their community outreach booth. But everything was different now. Marcus Reynolds arrived in his personal vehicle, not a patrol car. Rex bounded out enthusiastically, tail wagging before his paws even hit the ground. The German Shepherd wore a vest that read K9 Officer, but his demeanor was completely transformed from the rigid, stone-faced dog who'd sat at this same spot 6 months earlier. "Easy, boy," Marcus laughed as Rex tugged on the leash, eager to explore. The dog's eyes were bright, his ears up and alert but relaxed. He looked like what he was, a happy, healthy working dog who also happened to be a beloved family member. Officer Jennifer Cho was already at the booth with Thor, her Belgian Malinois. Thor looked equally transformed, playful, engaged, his tail wagging as he greeted Rex like the friend he'd become. The two dogs had played dates now, something that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. "Ready for this?" Jennifer asked, grinning. Marcus took a deep breath, ready as I'll ever be. The booth looked completely different. Instead of intimidating photos of K9s in action, there were images of the dogs playing, resting at home with their handlers and interacting gently with children. A large banner read, "Riverside K9 Wellness Program, where working dogs thrive." Within minutes, a crowd gathered. But unlike 6 months ago, people didn't hang back in fear. Children approached cautiously but eagerly, parents smiling instead of worried. Everyone had seen the videos. Everyone knew the story. "Is that Rex?" someone asked excitedly. "The famous Rex," another person exclaimed. Marcus had gotten used to this over the past months. Rex had become something of a celebrity, the face of working dog welfare reform. His story had been featured in documentaries, news segments, and academic papers. But more importantly, it had sparked real change. The Riverside Police Department's new K9 wellness program had become a model for departments nationwide. 43 agencies had already implemented similar protocols. Legislation was pending in 6 states to mandate home placement and enrichment requirements for all working dogs. The military had launched a comprehensive review of their K9 programs. But Marcus's greatest pride wasn't the attention or the accolades. It was the dog standing beside him, healthier, happier, and more effective at his job than ever before. Rex's performance metrics had actually improved since the changes. Turns out, happy dogs work better. Who knew? Well, a 3-year-old had known, that's who. "Mr. Police Officer." The voice cut through the crowd like a bell, and Marcus's heart leaped. He'd been hoping she'd come. Emma Chen came running through the crowd, now 6 months older and wearing a bright red winter coat with white fur trim. Her mother Sarah followed, pushing a stroller with Emma's new baby brother. "The doggy, the happy doggy," Emma squealed. Rex's reaction was immediate and joyful. His tail wagged so hard his entire body wiggled. He pulled toward Emma with excited whines, and Marcus let the leash out, giving him freedom to greet his little friend. Emma dropped to her knees and Rex was all over her, licking her face, pressing against her, making those happy groaning sounds that dogs make when they're absolutely delighted. It was exactly the kind of enthusiastic, unprofessional behavior that would have been forbidden 6 months ago. Now it was celebrated. "He remembers me," Emma laughed, hugging Rex's neck. "He's so happy. Are you happy, doggy?" "He's very happy," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. He knelt beside them. "Emma, I need to thank you. You changed everything, not just for Rex, but for working dogs all over the country." Sarah had tears in her eyes. "We've been following the story. We can't believe what Emma started." "I didn't start anything," Emma said matter-of-factly, still petting Rex. "I just told the truth. The doggy was sad, now he's happy. That's how it should be." From a child's perspective, it really was that simple. Chief Daniels approached with a special guest, Captain Morrison from the U.S. Working Dog Association, along with Dr. Rachel Kim. They'd all become frequent collaborators over the past months. "Emma Chen," Captain Morrison said, crouching down to her level. "I've been wanting to meet you. I'm a dog handler too, or I was for many years. What you said that day made me realize I'd made mistakes with my own dogs. Because of you, we're making sure other handlers don't make those same mistakes." Emma looked at him seriously. "Do your doggies get hugs now?" Morrison's weathered face cracked into a smile. "Yes, ma'am, they get lots of hugs now." "Good," Emma said, satisfied. Dr. Kim presented Emma with a framed certificate. "This is from the American Veterinary Medical Association. It's an honorary recognition for your contribution to animal welfare. You're the youngest person ever to receive it." Emma studied the certificate with interest but seemed more impressed by Rex than any award. "Can I give him a treat?" she asked. Marcus handed her a bag of Rex's favorite treats, organic, peanut butter flavored, something else that had changed. Rex got good food now, not just fuel. Emma held out a treat and Rex took it gently, his training evident even in his happiness. "You're such a good doggy," Emma told him. "The best doggy in the whole world." The crowd that had gathered broke into spontaneous applause. Phones were recording, but this time Marcus didn't mind. This was a moment worth sharing, the reunion between a little girl who'd spoken truth and the dog whose life she'd saved. "You know what the best part is?" Marcus said to Sarah, watching Emma and Rex together. "Rex is better at his job now. He's more focused, more reliable, more effective, because he's happy. Turns out you can be professional and loved at the same time." Sarah smiled. Sometimes it takes a child to remind us of the simple truths we forget as adults. Later that evening, after the fair closed, Marcus drove home with Rex in the passenger seat, another change. Rex was allowed on furniture now, allowed to be a dog. At home, Rex's bed sat in Marcus's bedroom. His toys were scattered around the living room. His food bowls had his name on them. Marcus had also started Emma's Mission, a non-profit foundation dedicated to working dog welfare. The foundation provided grants to help departments implement wellness programs, funded research into working dog psychology, and educated the public about the needs of K-9 officers. The logo was a simple image, a little girl hugging a police dog. As Marcus pulled into his driveway, Rex's tail thumped against the seat. Home. He understood now that this was home, not a kennel, not a workplace, but a real home where he was family. "Come on, buddy," Marcus said, opening the door. Rex jumped out and immediately grabbed his favorite toy, a stuffed duck that squeaked. He pranced around the yard with it, proud and playful. Marcus stood watching, still amazed even after 6 months. This was the same dog who'd been so rigid, so serious, so sad. Now he played. Now he smiled. Now he lived. All because a 3-year-old had the courage to say what needed to be said. Marcus pulled out his phone and sent a text to Sarah. "Thank Emma again for me. She saved my best friend." The response came quickly. "She says Rex saved himself. She just reminded him he was allowed to be happy." Marcus looked at Rex, now lying in the grass chewing his duck, completely content. "Yeah, buddy," Marcus said softly. "You're allowed to be happy always." Rex's tail thumped in agreement. The end.